All right. I'd like to start out by saying Barakatah Yahawah, bahasham Yahawashi, bahasham qadash. Welcome to another live lesson. All right. The name of this one is Duties of a Woman and Feminism. And as you're looking at your screen, what you're seeing is something someone put together which fits the topic. It says feminism encourages women to leave their husbands, kill their children, practice witchcraft, destroy capitalism, and become lesbians. This is somebody, Pat Robertson. He was a televangelist, and it's true. I mean, this says it all right here, and it is true, and pretty much this whole feminist movement, which pretty much was a women's lib movement was all started by the Rockefellers, who did it, for the sake of being able to tax both sides of the family. Because back then, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, pretty much the man was the one that would go, he was the breadwinner, and the woman would stay at home, raise the children, teach the children, feed them, clothe them, and maintain the house, while the man went to work to bring home the so-called quote unquote bacon, and then that was it, and the man had one job, they had cars, they had homes and all of that, and everything. That's the way things were supposed to be. But you leave it up to the devil, these international bankers, these wicked elite, and they'll change everything upside down. Well, feminism and women's lib is not a new thing. This goes back into the Garden of Eden, which Lord's will we're going to get something on that. And oh, by the way, this lesson was inspired. I was watching Elder Yashwamba's video yesterday, and I finished watching it this morning, dealing with Adam and Eve, and he was going into the how man had the laws orally. Very good video the elder put together, and I was watching it. Like I said, I finished watching it earlier this morning, and as I was watching it earlier, I had an idea to do a lesson, sort of like a lamb back, but just I won't say lamb back. I'll just say sort of like a inspiration through the spirit, of his video, to do and go into this, dealing with a woman's place, because a lot of these women out here, especially these younger women, they're growing up, with this westernized mentality, of doing things. And before we get started with anything else, let's go. I believe that's Proverbs, the 14th chapter, if I'm not mistaken. Proverbs 14 and 12. It says, "There is a way which seemeth right unto a man, or even a woman, but the end thereof are the ways of death." Just because something seems right, just because something feels good, doesn't mean that it's right, So there's a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. And what happens is that here in this western side of the world, these devils have pushed the same doctrine, the same philosophy that was being pushed in the Garden of Eden, so this whole women's lib movement, this feminism movement, is a total demonic thing, but women, because it benefits them, or so they think it does, they embrace it, and the reason why they embrace it is because it gives them power. And this is exactly what the serpent told Eve, which we're going to get that. Matter of fact, let's go there now. But before I go there, let's go to 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 11. It says, "Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices." So we're not ignorant of Satan's devices and the things that he does, and the thought patterns and the philosophies and the sciences and all this that he puts out there, for the people of the world to be blinded, by his doings. And this is what's happening. The people of the world are blinded because Esau, the so-called white man, which is the counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan, is out here, blinding the mind of these people that don't believe the truth, that are not walking in the paths of Yahawashi. This is 2 Corinthians 4:3. But if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost. So if our gospel is hid, which is what? This truth that we're speaking. And how is it hid? Well, basically, when we go out there and we teach, the majority of the world and the majority of Israelites, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians will not accept this truth. Why? Because they have blinders on them. It goes back to the Most High putting the spirit on the angel to blind Jake, but he also cemented that with Esau, the so-called white men, the Edomites, and they're the ones that are pushing these different philosophies out here to blind these people. Because when we bring out the scriptures, they said they'll say, well, no, that's not true because this so-and-so said this, or they'll try to go to a scripture in the Bible to try to refute you, but they constantly entangling themselves in that web, because it's not meant for them to go into the scriptures, because of the word, as it tells in the book of Psalm 69, is a trap unto them. It's a snare. And if you ever seen insects or any type of creatures go into, a spider's web, the more they try to get out of it, the more they get entangled in there. So that's the same thing with this truth. People out there that this truth is not meant for, they'll try to get into it and they'll get tangled up. This is why the Apostle Peter made that mention about the Apostle Paul's letters, that they were weighty. There's some that are unlearned wrestle, the scriptures as they do to their own destruction. Because, if you don't follow in the right direction, the penalty for that is death. This feminist movement, this homosexual, transgender movement, all those people are heading towards death, because the end of that is death, destruction, but because they were told they can do it, and it's not really an accepted thing in the scriptures, because if it was an accepted thing in society, these homos wouldn't have been hiding for so long in the closet, But now that these devils done pushed the agenda that it's okay, now these homos and these lesbians and all that, they're proud as hell, But then that same pride was the same pride that was in Sodom and Gomorrah. And what did the Lord do to Sodom and Gomorrah? He rained fire and brimstone upon those 5 cities and destroyed them for those lewd acts. And the scriptures say that those things were for an example in these days, that if you live ungodly in that fashion, you will be destroyed. But do you think Esau cares about that? No, because Esau is the devil. Once again, we'll keep saying it. They have the instruction book, but they don't follow the instruction book. So it says, but if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost, in whom the God of this world, who's that? Esau, because they have that power. People are all befuddled and bewildered, when they read the story in Genesis, the 3rd chapter, which we're going to get, Lord's will, about the serpent. They thinking that it was an actual serpent with a forked tongue, dancing back and forth, and telling Eve, that she could eat of that fruit, which really wasn't an actual fruit. It was actually the philosophies that you see being pushed today. Those same philosophies that were in the garden are here today, but most people are not going to get it because they were told a fairy tale. They believe in fables, as the scriptures say, about the serpent giving Eve an apple. But let's finish reading this up, and then we'll go to Genesis 3, and I may read this article. Well, actually not an article. It's a web page that I have here, that I would like to get to if the Lord allows. It says, in whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not. Why? Because it wasn't given to them to believe. This is why the Lord said that if it were possible, they would deceive the very elect, because they're going to be showing great signs and wonders, to where even the elect, could almost be persuaded by that. But because they are the elect and they have that ingredient in them, that mark, that thawah, they won't be persuaded by that, because they're going to have that ingredient of faith and that ingredient of the exemption from judgment, not to partake in these things. That's why the Lord told Elijah that he has reserved 7,000 men that have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal. When you don't adhere and listen and do the things that the scriptures are speaking about, the way that the apostles, elders of Great Millstone, and other Israelite camps out there that are teaching the doctrine the right way. When you don't adhere to that, you're setting yourself up for destruction. That's why the first scripture we read was what? There is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. So it says, the God of this world has blinded the minds of them which believe not, least the glorious gospel of Hamashiach, Yahawashi, who is the image of the Most High, Yahawah, should shine unto them. Because if it shine unto them, what would happen? They would have to be converted. Meaning what? They would have to be brought back into remembrance, brought back to the way that they were once taught. Back to the truth, back to their heritage, back to the ways that are pleasing unto Yahweh Bashem Yahawashi. And then they will be what? They will be healed and they will be delivered. You see? So now let's go. Let me just pull up Genesis 3 before we go there. I got this, which I put this in the description box. This is Women's Liberation Movement out of Wikipedia. And they also have a link to feminism. So we might read a little bit of the feminist movement. It said the Women's Liberation Movement, WLM, was a political alignment of women and feminist intellectualism and that emerged in the late 1960s and continued into the 1980s, primarily in the industrialized nations of the Western world. And notice it came in the 60s into the 80s. Now, if you know anything about the 60s, that's really the time when America started to be more and more demoralized. This is when you started having hippies. You started having that love movement. You can love whoever you want. If you're a woman that had a man, you could sleep with other men if you want. You could sleep with other women if you want. That whole Woodstock shit. There was a lot of freakism going on during Woodstock. A lot of homosexual acts, a lot of adulterous acts. People taking all type of drugs, psychedelic drugs, listening to that music that was putting even more demons on them. So bottom line, this is when the demoralization of America started to happen. And this is why the Lord calls us the valley of the shadow of death, because a valley is what? A lowland. But the lowland that is speaking about low morally, because when you go back to ancient Sodom and Gomorrah and the other 3 cities, there was a lot of immorality going on in those cities, and this is what brought their destruction. Just like if you reverse it a little bit before that, when you go back before the flood, what did it say? The Lord said that the wickedness of man was great upon earth, and he repented the Lord that he created man. And so what did he do? He chose out a man by the name of Noah, and he gave him instructions on what to do, how to build this ark, because the Lord was going to destroy the world by water at that time. And in building this ark, Noah was prophesying the whole time and telling these people, look, there's going to be a flood. And the people laughed at him. Rain? What are you talking about? Rain? What is rain? What? Because at that time there was no physical rain coming down from heaven, because everything was still in its proper order, even though the earth was decaying. But the dew was watering everything. So you didn't have any drops of rain coming down like you do in these times. So back then, to them, he looked like he looked like he was mocking them, like he was making fun, or he was telling jokes or fables. That's how they perceived him as, until the day when he and his wives and their sons all went into the ark, where they had the animals and the birds and all that stuff and reptiles. And when they shut the door, which was an angel of the Lord that shut the door, that's when the water started coming down and the people started freaking out. But it was too late. And this is what's happening right now. So these same tactics that you see being pushed out there, feminism and women's lib and all of these different philosophies, do what you do as thou wilt and all of that. These are all the things that were in the garden. Everything you see going on now is nothing new under the sun, right? So everything you see going on right now was the same things that were going on during the time just before the flood. And that's where the Lord said he saw the wickedness of man, that it was great upon earth. It says, which affected great change, political, intellectual, cultural throughout the world. And this is a movement that went out throughout the world. But where did it start? It really started here in America, because this is America, Babylon the Great, and they push us around the world. And when you type in feminism around the world, you'll see women with billboards in Australia. You see women with billboards in France, in different places around the world. This is a worldwide thing, you know, but they try to paint it as a good thing for women, but really it was a bad thing. You know, it was against the laws of Yahawashi, you know, and that's why these women today do not know their place. They do not know how to act. You know, they're talking about they're a strong woman, you know, that men can't deal with me, they can't handle me. You know, why are they saying that? Because the mentality that this world is given to them makes them think that they're equal to the man, or they can do what a man can do, and that's not the case. The Most High created both sexes. He created the man to be with the woman. You know, so you have the man and you have women, and their makeup is different. There's a reason why a man has a rod and a woman has a vagina and a breast. There's a reason for all of these things. There's a reason why the Most High made both sexes different. There's a reason why the man is stronger than the woman. But in this society, they teach women to go and, you know, take steroids and take all kind of bullshit and start lifting weights, you know, be all buff and diesel like men, you know, have women in the MMA and football and all kind of madness. And that's what's happening in this society. And this is another reason why the Most High is going to destroy America, which is Babylon the Great. It says, and culturally comprised of women, racially and culturally diverse backgrounds, who propose that economic, psychological, and social freedom were necessary for women to progress from being second-class citizens in their society. Now, if you know anything about a woman is a second-class citizen. The word woman itself, when you break it down, the word woman means a female servant. Because a woman was made as what? As a helpmeet, which we're going to get that real quick. Let's get here, Ecclesiastes 36:24. He that getteth a wife, which is what? A woman, that's another name for woman, beginneth a what? A possession. So this woman is a possession to this man. So in essence, she goes from being under her father's roof and under her father's rule to being under her husband's rule. And this is why the husband is the God over the woman, but not in this society. Matter of fact, before I read on, let's go straight to the point. Genesis 3:16. It says, unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. And this is why in sorrow shalt thou bring forth children. This is why they have birth pains. It says, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. Why? Because these women don't have the ability to govern themselves. They call themselves strong individual women, you know, whether black woman, Latino woman, whatever. But what they're doing is they're socially, morally, you know, and everything else under the sun. They're single-handedly destroying the nation of Israel. You know, this is why these women, they're freaks. Why? Because they were allowed feminism and they were allowed women's lib. You know, it's my body, the me movement. You know, they go and they have sex with all different kind of guys. Don't know who the guy's child is. They get pregnant, and so that they don't have to take care of that baby and they can keep freaking off, they'll go to the abortion clinic and have an abortion. Then they wonder after a while why they can't have children when they want to have children, because you done had so many operations. They didn't destroy your uterus. They done destroyed stuff into that they don't need to be messing with. Now, if you would have had the discipline and you would have been taught the right way and not be laying down with Tom, Dick, and Harry, you would have had your husband. You know, you would have had children, and you wouldn't have been in that predicament or in that situation. But because in this society they teach you, you know, that you could do whatever you want. This is why these women are running rampant, and there's no one there to check them. And when you say something, you're being an asshole. You're being this. You're being the other. You know, you have other men that are supposed to be men cursing you out. These Captain Saver hoes. This is why the Most High is going to stomp you out, man. You Captain Saver hoes, the Most High is going to stomp you out. You women out there that are lewd, that are doing whatever the hell you want, that have sipped that Babylonian juice, that had spiked it with the serpent's venom, going back to the Garden of Eden. You're going to be destroyed, no doubt about that. You know, unless you repent. And for a lot of you women, that demon is heavy on you, so you're not going to be able to repent unless the Lord pulls it off of you. You know, because a lot of these women are totally out of order. You know, started from the so-called black woman, the Judite woman, to the so-called Latina woman in the Northern Kingdom, and even the Native American Indian women are off. They're off, man. You know, you think, oh no, you know, Gad, you know, they kind of, you know, their women are kind of in order. No, they're not. All these Israelite women are out of fucking order. You know, they're out of order, every last one of them. You know, and this is why, you know, we have the Lord is setting us up to set the balance back. You know, set the balance back on the earth, because there's going to be a certain amount of men and women, Israelite men and women, that are going to be delivered and that are going to adhere to the best of their ability to the message of Yahawashi, this gospel, which Esau, these international elite wicked bankers, will not have the power over them to blind them. So it says, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. So the word rule is what? You over thee, or you have the word subject or subject, which is what? To rule, to rule under, or under the rule, because a woman needs that instruction. See, the reason why these women like what they're doing is because they can be freaks. They can do whatever the hell they want. This is what they consider liberty. But that so-called liberty of yours is what's destroying you. It's what's destroying your moral fiber. It's what's destroying you, and what's going to cause you to be put to death. This is Ecclesiastes 25 and 24. Of the woman came the beginning of sin. Because they always talk about, you know, Adam sinned. You know, it was Adam. You know, no, it was the woman. It says, of the woman came the beginning of sin. Let's go to another precept. Let's go to 1 Timothy chapter 2. And we're going straight to the point, because some of these scriptures we're going to go back over, Lord's will. It says, 1 Timothy 2:13. I'll start at 12. But I suffer not a woman to teach, nor to usurp authority over the man. And this is, and you know, the Apostle Paul was quoting directly, you know, or not quoting, but he was referencing back to how the serpent, which was an actual man, gave Eve the power to usurp authority over Adam, over her man, because of when the man, which was described as a serpent, came to the woman, you know, he told her that you're not going to die, you're going to be as gods. And when she saw that power, she was elated, because that's what these women want. They want power, because they were not given that power. This is why they need instruction. You know, and even my man said it, you know, he said, if a hoe don't get no instruction, she heading for self-destruction. You know, I mean, he put it in pimp terms, you know, but really when you analyze that statement, that's a very true statement. You know, I mean, you can clean it up some, you know, to address it, but really these women are hoes. Majority of these women out here are hoes. It says, but to be in what? In silence. And this is one thing that these women cannot do. Oh, yes, I believe that I'm an Israelite woman. I have my head covered in, but their fucking mouth starts yapping. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna really say anything, but you know, I just wanted to just be quiet. That's what the scriptures say. Be quiet. That's it. You know, and this is why Great Millstone is so hated, because we just come to you and tell you straight up raw what it is, man. And you either accept it or you don't, you know? But it says that she has to be what? In silence. For Adam was first formed, then Eve. Adam was set in order first. Then Eve was set in order after him. It says that Adam was not deceived, because Adam was deceived by who? By Eve afterwards. But Adam wasn't deceived by that individual in the garden. But the woman being deceived was in the transgression. So who was the first transgressor? Eve. It says, notwithstanding, she shall be saved in childbearing if they continue in faith and charity and holiness with sobriety. But the point is that she was the one that was in the transgression. She was the first sinner. And then she gave it to Adam, and Adam went off. This is why it says here, Ecclesiastes 25:24, of the woman came the beginning of sin, and through her we all die. You know, because of the sin that Adam committed, caused death to come upon man, but who was the first one that sinned? It was Eve. So really through her we all die. And Adam went behind her. It says give the water no passage. Why? Because if you have a well and the well is broken, what's going to happen to that water? It's going to go all over the place. So if you want to contain water, you have to put it in a vessel or put it in a well or something or a cistern that's going to hold the water in one place. Otherwise, it's going to be all over the place. Water can flow or water can crash. Like my man Bruce Lee, be like water, my friend. But it says, give the water no passage, neither a wicked woman liberty to gad abroad. And you see that all throughout in the ghettos and the barrios, the favelas, the shanty, wherever you go where Jake is at. You see all these women gallivanting around, all walking all over the place, young women packed in packs, being a bunch of hoes and sluts and lesbians because they have no guidance. This is why the scriptures speak about when a man, when he brought up a daughter, when she came of the age of a woman, he couldn't sleep. At least she would abuse herself. Because, when women get that age, 11, 12, 13, when they hit puberty, they start getting those feelings because those are those hormones and their bodies are set, are set up to become women, to develop or to bring forth children. And in bringing forth children, they have those desires. And the Lord put those desires there because the Lord said, let them be fruitful and multiply. But what does the devil do? He said, nope, you can have an abortion. You can have the pleasure of sex and all that, but when you get pregnant, you have the right to abort that child, even if the child is about to be born. Because the other brothers have done videos where, even if the baby is fully formed, you can have an abortion. I mean, I don't remember all the particulars, but this devil is truly the devil, man. It says, if she go not as thou wilt, wouldst have her, cut her off from thy flesh and give her a bill of divorce and let her go. But the point is, give not a wicked woman liberty to gad abroad. And pretty much you're not supposed to really give a woman liberty to gad abroad anyway. Because if you're not there to watch over that, what's going to happen? That possession is going to be spoiled. Let's see. I believe that's here in this. Let's see if this is it. Just bear with me 1 second. I didn't spell that right. Let's see. Did I spell it right? I think that might be it. Here we go. Should be in the Apocrypha. Okay, yeah, I was there. Sirach 36 and 25. Where we at? Ecclesiasticus 36. Oh, that's 26. That's why. Okay. 36. Excuse me. And 25. And it says, let me start here. Ecclesiasticus 36 and 24. He that getteth a wife beginneth a possession, which we read earlier. This shows you that the woman is a possession. She is a second-class citizen because she is under the rule of her man, or she's under the rule of her father. That's why the woman takes what? She takes on the last name of her father, or she takes on the last name of her man. But in this society, what they do? No, Jada Smith Pinkett, or Jada Pinkett Smith. They still let these women keep their last name but those last names that they got came from their fathers. It says, he that getteth a wife beginneth a possession, a help like unto himself, and a pillar of rest. And these women are not a pillar of rest. Because the Lord created them for comfort. But what do? Instead of comforting you, they constantly nagging, talking shit, pressing buttons, getting under your skin, when all you're trying to do is just relax and chill. It says where no hedges, meaning if there's nothing there to guard it or protect it. And this is why when men went to war in the medieval times, what happened? They would put a chastity belt on these women because these women are loose. So they had to put a chastity belt on them so that another man couldn't pop them. Because they had to go off to war, and you don't know how long they would have been off to war. So that says where no hedge is there, the possession, which is the woman, is spoiled. No, and this is why you have men and women laying down with, or should I say, men laying down with women that are married to another man and committing adultery. You know, and this is why you have scriptures, which we'll get now, which I read a little bit of it earlier in the book of what is that? Numbers, the 5th chapter, and we'll go to the 11th verse. We may jump around, or we may just go ahead and read through it. But Numbers 5 and 11. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, If any man's wife go aside and commit a trespass against him, and a man lie with her carnally. Why? Because the possession was spoiled. And it be hid from the eyes of the other husband, because he didn't catch her in the act, and be kept close, meaning because she knows, the other man knows, but her husband doesn't know. You know, and you see situations like that, you know, where you might have had one of your boys in the world, and you knew his woman was cheating on him, you know, and you say, hey, you know, she cheating on you, dog. You know, he ain't gonna believe it. Or some people see these things, but they won't say anything. And because there's no penalty behind this, these women are allowed to do whatever the hell they want to do. And she be defiled. Why? Because when the scriptures say what about the land? That you're not supposed to sow a land with diverse kinds of seeds. Why? Because it'll become polluted. So when you have a man that has a woman and he's popping that woman, and another man comes and pops that woman, there's a conflict there. There's a great it's dirty. It's filth. Let's go here quick before we go any further. What is that? Is that Jeremiah 3 and 1? They say, if a man put away his wife and she go from him and become another man's, shall he return unto her again? Shall not that land be greatly polluted? Why? Because you have diverse seeds in there. And this is why sometimes these women, when they take off their pants, they stink. You know, I mean, there's other reasons for it, but sometimes when you have women with different men's sperm in them, those sperms are fighting and killing each other. So that funk that's coming out of there is from them diverse. Some of them is from them diverse seeds being in the woman. You know, so it says, so if she be defiled and there be no witness against her, neither she be taken with the manner, because she wasn't caught, and the spirit of jealousy come upon him. And you know, sometimes, you know, you'll be with a woman and a spirit of jealousy will come upon you. Why? Because she's doing something. She's either plotting to do it, or she's doing it, or she's about to do it, or whatever the case is. And that spirit will come on the man. You know, that spirit of jealousy, like something's wrong. Because why? The Lord said when a man gets with a woman, what happens? They become one flesh. So when they become one flesh, you know, there's a spiritual union there. That's why Yahawashi said, what the Lord has put together, let no man put asunder. There's a spiritual union there. That's a bond for life. It's supposed to be a bond for life. But in this society, they teach you, well, you know what? You know, you can just divorce, you know, the woman can divorce the man, or vice versa, and the man got to pay for everything, because the man gets the raw end of the deal when they get married in this society, you know, and they encourage that. So here it is. This chick, she done had 3, 4, 5 husbands already, because they allowed that in the society. But in the ancient world, when a man and a woman laid down, that woman could not go be anybody else's. If her and her man had a fight and they split, she was supposed to remain unmarried, as it tells you in 1 Corinthians, the 7th chapter. And if not, if she desired, you know, if she got that tingle down there, you know, she needed some work put in, she had to go back to her husband, and he would have to put the work back in. Otherwise, she wasn't supposed to go to be with no other man. But in this society, they encourage that, and that's all a part of women's live, a part of feminism, and a part of all of that. And the thing with feminism is, the majority of these feminists are lesbians, and that's off according to the scriptures. But they encourage that, and these young Israelite women, these so-called Black, Latino, and Native American Indian women, are being their minds are being molded towards this, to where it's becoming the norm for a woman to just be a lesbian or bisexual or whatever she wants to be, and they're pushing that. You know, that's why the society has to go. So going back, it says, Where no hedges, there the possession is spoiled, and he that hath no wife will wander up and down mourning. Who will trust a thief well appointed that skippeth from city to city? That's pretty much it on that. So let's go back to Numbers 5 and 14. And the spirit of jealousy come upon him, and he be jealous of his wife, and she be defiled. Or if the spirit of jealousy come upon him, and he be jealous of his wife, and she be not defiled. See, because sometimes that spirit can come upon you, and it could just be, them demons messing with you, making you think, you see, just tell me the truth. Did you F them? Did you do that? And sometimes the women don't do it, but most of the time they do. You see, so that's why there was a law in the Bible pertaining to this situation. When that spirit of jealousy came upon the man, he will go before the judges. It says, then shall the man bring his wife unto the priest, and shall bring her offering for her, the 10th part of an ephah of barley meal. He shall pour no oil upon it, nor put frankincense thereon, for it is an offering of jealousy, an offering of memorial, and bringing iniquity to remembrance. It says, and the priest shall bring her near and set her before the Lord, and the priest shall take holy water in an earthen vessel, and of the dust that is in the floor of the tabernacle, the priest shall take and put it into the water. And the priest shall set the woman before the Lord and uncover the woman's head, because a woman's head is supposed to be covered. And I ran across this precept, reading 1 Corinthians 11 earlier. The Spirit led me to this precept, and I remembered, I forgot about this precept, but if the situation would arise about the spirit of jealousy in the man, this is the scripture where we will go to. And put the offering of memorial in her hands, which is the jealousy offering, and the priest shall have in his hand the bitter water that causes the curse, because this water was going to cause the curse. It was either going to condemn her or set her free. There's another term for it, but it was either going to condemn her or set her free. So then the priest shall charge her by an oath, and say unto the woman, if no man have lain with thee, and if thou hast not gone aside to uncleanness with another instead of thy husband, be thou free from this bitter water that causes the curse. But if thou hast gone aside to another instead of thy husband, and if thou be defiled, and some men have lain with thee beside thine husband, then the priest shall charge the woman with an oath of cursing. And the priest shall say unto the woman, the Lord make thee a curse and an oath among thy people, when the Lord doth make thy thigh to rot and thy belly to swell. And that's why a lot of these women have that rotted thigh, which is a cellulite and those varicose veins and all of that, and their stomachs are all messed up. Hey, because a lot of these women are nothing but a bunch of sluts, man, and they love it so. Now, don't get me wrong, we're all a nation of adulterers. This Lord called us a nation of adulterers, because the women, even women that we have, even though they didn't have a man at the time, they had a man before. But this is just the society that we're in. This is a messed up society that we're in, and this is part of the curses, But if you know that a woman is dealing with a man and you go deal with her, then you're going off. And that woman is going off. So her that's why you see a lot of these women with cellulite in their thighs, or the varicose veins, or because that's that rotten thigh, and then you see them big pot bellies, because this is all part of that curse. It says, and this water that causes the curse shall go into thy bowels and make thy belly to swell and thy thighs to rot. And the woman shall say, so be true, so be true. So pretty, you could read on more, there's more to it, but I want to, keep on moving on through the Spirit. So we read that. So let's go back to Genesis. Let me see. I might have a couple more precepts here, but let's go to Genesis 3:1. And this is, you got to understand, what's going on now is what was going on back then. This here in Genesis 3 was the beginning of this whole women's lib and this whole feminist movement. Because you read about feminism. Matter of fact, let me see if it got just something brief. Feminism is a range of political movements, ideologies, and social movements that share a common goal to define, establish, and achieve political, economic, personal, and social gender equality. That includes fighting gender stereotypes and seeking to to establish educational and professional opportunity, which it seems harmless, but it's not, because this is not the job of a woman. The job of a woman is to be under her man. But in this society, when you say that, oh, you're being a male chauvinist pig and all this, that, and the other, you know, and the reason why a lot of these women are feminists is because some men, you know, hurt their feelings, and they turn around and to spite that man, hated all men, you know, and that's why a lot of them, the majority of them, if not damn near all of them, are nothing but a bunch of lesbians, you know. So Genesis 3:1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field. Now a serpent is not talking about an actual serpent, and when you go here, you'll see it will say serpent, H 5175 Nachash, which says serpent, snake, serpent, image of serpent, fleeing serpent, mythological. It don't really say too much more after that, but when you do look up that the term snake or serpent, let's see what comes up. Matter of fact, let me go to serpent first. You got a large snake, a sly or treacherous person, especially one who exploits a position of trust in order to betray it. And that's exactly what was going on here in the garden, you know, of Eden. When this man, this individual person, man, that was known as the serpent, as a sly, as it says here, a sly or treacherous person, especially one who exploits a position of trust in order to betray it. And this is why this happened. So this individual had the spirit of Satan in him. And that same spirit of Satan that was in this individual here in the garden was the same spirit that came into Cain when Abel and Cain were born to Adam and Eve. You know, and that same spirit after the flood and after they were destroyed, that same spirit traveled through and entered into Esau. Because on the earth, there are a people that are known as the wicked. There are people that are known as the seed of the serpent. You know, and that people are the Edomites, the so-called white man. All right, and they're red, they're not white. So, okay, so going back, it says, now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord's power had made, because they were more sly and slick and cunning. And this is why, you know, when we read the scriptures say that we are not ignorant of Satan's devices, because we see through the cunning craftiness, we see through the spirit and power of Yahawashi, we see through all of the lies and that cheap veneer that they got, you know, on there, you know, that cheap polish, that cheap gloss that they have, you know, that the majority of the world is mesmerized to, you know. But through the spirit and power of Yahawashi, it gave us the minerals to be able to see through that. Now check out how this sly, cunning devil, what he did. And he said unto the woman, yea, hath God said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? He knew what the hell he was doing, but he was baiting her, you know. So instead of just coming straight and say, look, won't you eat of this? He just came to her in a slick way. Hey, did the Most High say, you know, you're not supposed to eat of all the trees of the garden? You know, like in a question form, which you already knew what the hell was going on. And he said, and the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit, of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, the Most High has said, you shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. You know? So he knew what her response was going to be. All right? So like, let me just write this down. You know, something came to mind. Let me just write this down. Okay. So like it for that. You know, so he knew what her response was going to be. So instead of him just coming straight up direct, and this is how the devil operates. He don't operate straight up. You know, he comes playing semantics, playing word games, a circumlocution. Like every time you question vocab, no class mohong, right, about stuff, he'll go all the way around the board. He won't answer your question. He'll go all the way around the board. He'll put all these different thoughts in people's minds, and then he'll come right back to the same shit he was saying that you just answered, you know, but he ain't going to listen to it because he circumvented the whole thing. And this is what that serpent, this is why he's an Edomite, because that same spirit that was in that man in the garden, which was in Cain, is in Esau today. You know, and this is why they do that. They like to play semantics. They won't come direct. They'll use plausible deniability. They'll use circumlocution. They'll use semantics. They'll use wordplay, and speak around the whole thing, and then come right back around and make it as if it's in their favor when you already answered the question. It says, but then now check it out. It says, and the serpent said unto the woman, you shall not surely die. And he says, for the Most High doth know that in the day you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be open, and you shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And this is what intrigued Eve to do this. She said, huh? Be like gods? In other words, have that power. And I've witnessed this firsthand, with my ex, when I first came into truth. I had a woman when I first came into the truth. And then, we had broken up years later. But I witnessed that when she would try to discipline my son, she would lie to him, or she would, he wouldn't listen to her. But as soon as I said a couple of words, he'll just straighten up. And I remember her under her breath saying that power. And it brought to mind this, because this is what these women want. They want that power that man has, but they can't have it. And this is what the serpent beguiled her to do. It says, and when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, because she actually went to it. Now, what type of food is this talking about? Is it talking about an actual food? No, it's talking about a food for thought, as they say. And then she was intrigued by it, and she ate of it. So that's why these women, they're all shamefaced, humble, and then they start telling them about feminism, and they're like, silly and simple. Like a scripture say, hold on, let me get that real quick. They're silly and simple. Timothy 3. And what is that? 7. 8 and 6. For of this sort are they which creep into houses and lead captive silly women laden with sins, led away with divers lusts. Because they're simple, they're silly, And then when they start eating of this feminism and of this women's lib, they start becoming bold. And that shame faces start turning into boldness, and looking at you all, like you was a piece of shit, But this is that feminist movement. This is that same venom that was spewed out in the garden to Eve. And she saw that it was good for food, and it was good for food for thought, and she ate of it. And that it was pleasant to the eyes because she loved it. Why? Because now she was in a position of power, in a position of authority. All right. Let me get this other precept so I won't forget. Matter of fact, let me get rid of that. Open up another tab. Let's go to here. And let's go to Sirach. Just bear with me 1 second. Sirach or Ecclesiasticus 17. I'm going to hit that and come back. All right. So it says, and the tree to be desired to make one what? Wise. She took of the fruit thereof. So she actually partook in this event. So when you partake into feminism or the women's live movement, or when you partake into this false Christianity, when you partake into the reading of the stars and the moon and all of that, and you partake of witchcraft and all that, those are all that's all the left hand energy or the left hand side of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. You see, because prior to this, they only knew good. They only knew the right side. That's why they would be able to live forever. And what we're getting now is we're getting back the right to the tree of life to live forever. And the beginning part of that is the belief in Yahawashi, Yahawah bahasham Yahawashi. And that's what we're getting right now. So it says she took of the fruit thereof and did eat. And this is why these people in the churches get confused. They say, well, it says that she took the fruit and she ate it. Yeah, she ate it with her mind. Let me see. Let's go right here to 2 Timothy. Sorry, not 2 Timothy. Jeremiah 3 and 15. It says, and I will give you pastors according to mine heart, which shall feed you with knowledge and understanding. So that's what she ate. She ate of knowledge and understanding. But the knowledge and understanding that she ate of was on the left-hand side. And we know that the left-hand side does not hold anything good. What is that? Ecclesiasticus 19. Let me see. Just bear with me 1 second. Ecclesiasticus 19 and 22, I believe it is. It says, the knowledge of wickedness is not wisdom, neither at any time the counsel of sin is prudence. So the knowledge of wickedness is not wisdom, you know, but we had to learn both sides of the tree in order to become perfect. And we could read that too, nor as well we'll get to it in the book of Ecclesiasticus. So going back to Genesis, it says, and did eat. So she ate of this what? She ate of that philosophy that women's lived, that feminism, all the way back in the garden, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. So he went off, and the eyes of them both were open, and they knew that they were naked, meaning they knew that they had sinned. They knew that they went off. As to the one before, as Elder Yahawah was breaking it down in the Genesis, the 2nd chapter, they were simple. They were they only knew the right way, you know. So that's why they weren't ashamed. But now that they were actually naked, meaning they sinned, then they were ashamed, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. So what did they do? They knew that they had sinned, so they made themselves the garments, you know, of those nations, or they took on the identity, should I say, of those nations and put it upon us. So it doesn't mean that they didn't have no clothes and they finally put some clothes on. No, they took on the identity, the philosophies of those things. Like you see Jake today. Jake, that's an Islam. He'll have the Islamic vibe about him. You know, he'll speak with the accent. You know, he'll wear the garbs. He'll wear them little hats, and you know, you'll have the Moors. You know, they'll wear that fez. You know, and you'll have the Hamitic Jake, the Jake that thinks he's a Hamite. You know, they'll have on the dashiki and different garbs of the other nations. Or when they speaking, you'll hear them spewing out that same madness. And this is what was going on in the garden. You know, they took on the identity of these philosophies so that they can hide themselves in the garden. It says, and they heard the voice of the Lord power walking in the garden of in the cool of the day, which this was the prophets. You know, they heard the prophets speaking. Let's go real quick to Luke. Luke, the 1st chapter, and I believe it's the 70th verse. Luke 1 and 7. And he spake by the mouth of his holy prophets, which have been since the world began. So all the way from the beginning of the world, you have prophets. So they heard the prophets in the garden. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord power amongst the trees of the garden, meaning amongst the other nations. But they couldn't hide themselves because the look of this particular these Adamites was more precious and more beautiful than these other nations. So they stuck out like a sore thumb, even though they had on the philosophies and the identity of those wicked what's the word I'm looking for? Philosophies, you know, they couldn't be hid, you know. So this is what this feminism and this women's lib movement is bringing. Is bringing back that old agreement or that old contract that was signed between the serpent, which was a man, and Eve. And this is what you have today, you know. But when you read the scriptures tell you what the duties of a woman are. Let's go to real quick, Titus chapter 2 and verse 3. The aged women. So women that were older were supposed, this was their job. The aged women likewise, that they be in behavior as becometh holiness, not false accusers. You see a lot of these women, the false accusers, you know. It says not given to much wine. You see a lot of them are just alcoholics, you know, or just lushes, you know. It says teachers of good things. It says that they may teach the young women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children. Why? Because it was the woman's job to raise up the children. But there was an order. You had the older women that would teach the younger women how to do this, and it was the job of the husband in the house to watch over all of this. But this is the reason why, with this whole feminist movement and women's live movement, they got rid of what? They got rid of the father out of the house, because these devils know that the father is the one that sets the discipline. You know, the mother is the nurturer and the father sets the discipline, but you need both there. The child needs to have both, the father and the mother, so that they can grow up to be a balanced individual, because they have both sides. They have the rough, strict discipline, then they have the love, the nurture, the kindness, you know, and both of those together make for a better family. And this devil knows it, and that's why they broke the family apart. It says to be discreet, and these women are not discreet. You know, they're out there telling their business in the street, you know, and then these jobs that they have, you know, which the women got to work today, you know, because of the messed up situation that we're in, you know. So if a man, if a brother has a wife, you know, and they both work, you know, to help pay the bills, you know, it wasn't like that in the past, you know. And then when you go to these jobs are wicked. A lot of adultery going on in there. You have women that have men at home that freak off with the men that are on the job. Total wickedness, man. It says chaste, because they're supposed to be chaste or chaste, you know, like the chastity belt. Matter of fact, let's go to that. Let's go to a couple of these words. Discreet. Sophron, right? It says of a sound mind, sane in one's senses. You know, not like them lewd women, or like the Job curses women out. You sound like one of them foolish women. You know, you don't sound like you're of a sound mind. You don't sound like you're sane. You don't sound like you're in your senses. Curbing one's desire and impulses, self-controlled, temperate. And that's what temperate means, self-controlled. You know, not going around laying down with every Tom, Dick, and Harry, as the scriptures say, that they will open up their quiver to every arrow. You know, doing all type of stuff, you know, not just with men, also with women. You know, but this devil is the one that's responsible for this, just like he was responsible for it when he was in the Garden of Eden, because that spirit that was that person in the Garden of Eden, that's the same spirit that's in Esau today. And that same man in the garden that was referred to as a serpent is here today, whether they're alive. They got to be one of them top Rawchaa, one of them top devils. Whether they're alive or they're back in the spirit world, they're around. You know, so going back, that was discreet. Then the next one is chaste or chaste. Hagnos, and which the word hagnos means holy. You know, it says exciting, reverence, venerable, sacred, pure. You know, pure from carnality, chaste or chaste, modest, pure from every fault, immaculate, clean. You know, because when you lay down with more than one man, you're unclean. And these women do it randomly. You know, they deal with all different type of dudes. You know, I've seen it with my eyes. You know, I've seen women playing games on men with my own eyes. You know, and the women that do this, they look good. They fine as hell. You know, got nice bodies, everything. But there was no one there to guide them. You know, and they were left to their own devices. And that's why it says, give not a wicked woman liberty to gad abroad. So we got to be discreet, chaste, keepers at home, which these women cannot do. You know, it says good, obedient to what? To their own husbands. Why? Because the man is the head of the woman. Let's get that real quick. The man is the head of the woman. Let's go to 1 Corinthians. And we already read it in Genesis, the 3rd chapter, 1 Corinthians 11:3. But I would have you know that the head of every man is Yahawashi, and the head of the woman is the man. See? The man is who gives a woman the instructions on what to do and how to do it. And the head of Hamashiach is the Most High. See? So there's an order to everything. There's an order between men and rank. There's an order between the man and his woman. There's an order between the woman and the children. There's just an order, period. But this devil done broke that order, just like he did in the garden when he gave Eve to eat of those philosophies. He broke that cycle. He broke that those instructions, and threw everything into a tailspin, a disaster. So going back, it says that the word of the Most High be not blasphemed. You know, because that what these women are committing, they're committing blasphemy, man. If you want to get technical with it, when they're laying out with all these different men, when they talking all kind of, you know, stuff about their man, you know, they're committing blasphemy. 1 Timothy 5:11. Now this is dealing with the situation with widows, but you could use this too for young women, because it says, but the younger widows refuse. In other words, you had older widows, right? Matter of fact, let's see. 1 Timothy 5:9. Let not a widow be taken into the number under 60 years old, which 60 years old is what? 60 years old, having been the wife of one man. A lot of women today can't say that, you know, but a woman that was a widow, she could stay a widow after the age of 60, because the younger ones still had that fire down there that they needed, you know, somebody to put in work, you know, to you know, to get it, to set the balance right. Set the balance right. Salakia got a little dove moment, brother Salakia. It says well reported of for good works, if she have brought up children, if she have lodged strangers. It says if she have washed the saints' feet, if she have relieved the afflicted, if she have diligently followed every good work. Because she was giving her life over to Yahawashi and helping the men of the Lord, lodge them, cook for them, you know, wash their clothes, you know, because the men of the Lord back then would travel from city to city, from town to town, because that's how it was done back in them days. But now we have what? We have the unicorn's horn, which is what? Which is which is the internet, which is doing all the heavy lifting and teleporting the word from one part of the world to the other. You know, it says, but the younger widows refuse. So if you had a woman that was young and her husband died, she shouldn't have got into this situation of being, you know, lodging the saints and washing the, you know, and her devotion to Yahawashi, as far as just remaining a widow. Because that was the only time when a woman was actually freed from her husband. Let's go to Romans 7:1. Know ye not, brethren, for I speak to them that know the law, how that the law hath dominion over man as long as he liveth. For the woman which hath an husband is bound by the law to her husband so long as he liveth. But if the husband be dead, she is loose from the law of her husband. So that's the only time a woman is loose from the law of her husband, is if the man died. And that's why you had widows. They were older widows. You had some widows that were younger. Their husband may have got killed in an altercation, or they might have got killed in war, or they might have got killed at the job, you know, working, you know. So if the woman was a young woman, she wasn't supposed to remain a widow. She could still get married, because it says, so then if while her husband liveth, she be married to another man, she shall be called an adulteress. And this is what's going on today in America and around the world. A lot of adultery going on. But if her husband be dead, she is free from that law, so that she is no adulteress, though she be married to another man. Why? Because you had those younger women that still had that fire down there, you know, that needed, you know, the duty of marriage to be performed on them. But the older women, they have been past that, you know. They have a control. They have self-control over that. You know, they're temperate over that. All right. So now going back to 1 Timothy 5:11, but the younger widows refuse.
For when they have begun to wax wanton against Hamashiach, why? Because they gave a vow that they wanted to serve the Lord and to remain widows, but they wax wanton. Why? Because they got that itch down there. You know, like the scriptures say, it's better to marry than to burn. And the burning part is talking about you have those desires, your hormones are jumping. Against Hamashiach, they will marry. See, they will have sex, having damnation because they have cast off their first faith, because they devoted their life to the Lord when they should have just went and got another husband and they could have still followed the Lord. You know, just in a different manner. It says, and withal they learn to be idle. See, and they're idle, sitting around doing nothing. Why? Especially these women today, because they haven't been taught. Well, they sitting around waiting, you know, okay, let's go to the Chinese store, give me some chicken wings, some pork fried rice, you know, make sure you get a lot of duck sauce, you know, or they go to KFC or McDonald's or whatever the case is, you know, just sitting around the house eating up every damn thing. There's a wandering about from house to house. See, they're going from this house to that house when the scriptures commanded these women to be keepers at home. Don't be wandering about from here to there, going to other women's house, talking all kind of shit. You know, I mean, some brothers sometimes they get together with their women, they do certain things. That's cool because they're with their husband. You know, but a woman really ain't supposed to be gathering and brought out there on her own. It says, and not only idle, meaning not doing anything, shiftless, but tattlers also and busybodies, telling all kind of stuff, busybody and everybody's business, you know, telling everybody how their business should be when their shit is all messed up. Speaking things which they ought not. See, I will therefore that the younger widow marry. So instead of trying to devote yourself as a widow to the Lord, you should marry if you're a young woman. Bear children. Guide the house. These are the things that were commanded, what? That the older women teach the younger women. Give none occasion to the adversary to speak reproachfully. And a lot of these women have given occasion to the adversary to speak reproachfully. You know? And that's why a lot of them have a bad name. And that's why you have a woman that'll move from one state to another state, or clear across the United States, for instance, and then she'll go to a place that nobody knows her, and then she'll start all over again, like if she was this virtuous woman, but she's not but a hole in a slut. She just her reputation was so tarnished back where she was from that she had to go move somewhere totally, completely different to get away from that stigma. It says, "For some are already turned aside after Satan, the same way that Eve had turned aside after Satan." Let's go to 2 Corinthians 11:3. But I fear, lest by any means, as the serpent beguiled Eve through his subtlety, so your mind should be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Yahawashi. So Eve was beguiled by the serpent, by this individual, this man, this serpentine type man, you know, that was slick, you know, that beguiled her, that fooled her. And that's what's happening with these women, you know. For some are already turned aside after Satan. See, because they bought the Kool-Aid, you know, and a lot of these women here, they believe in this women's lib, especially you Israelite women. A lot of you Israelite women, so-called Negro, Latino, Native American, Indian women, you believe in that women's liberation movement, and that's nothing more than the venom of the serpent in the garden, which was an actual man, you know. And a lot of you believe in this feminism, and the majority of feminists, if not all of them, are a bunch of lesbians, you know. And the scriptures give you instruction after instruction after instruction after instruction of how these women should conduct themselves and how these men should conduct themselves. But they don't follow the instructions. Now, we're not going to keep it perfect, but at least we tried to rehearse the best way we can, you know. But these women, you know, they've been given too much power. It's been too good to them, and they refuse to give it up. And this is why the Lord is going to come and destroy them. A lot of women are going to die in this society. Matter of fact, let's go from there to Ezekiel chapter 9 and verse 4. And the Lord said unto him, unto who? Yahawah said unto the angel. And this happened back then, as the Elder Pastor brought out, which is true. This happened back then because there was a lot of wickedness going on back then. But the scriptures say that the things that were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope. Because we read about these things And if they happened back then, they were set up for what? For an example today of what not to do. Because the penalties are still applied today. This is why people are still dying to this day. These are the judgments of the Lord. So it's no different from back then to now, except it's just a different time period. But the same exact things are going on that were going on back then. It says, and the Lord said unto him, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, wherever Israel is at, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. So the men that are tired of the way things are going, that are tired of seeing this homosexual agenda, that are tired of seeing this transgender agenda, that are tired of seeing pedophiles, get off, that are tired of seeing all manner of wickedness that's going on in this world. The Lord set a mark upon them. And when you go into this word mark, in the English is mark, but in the Hebrew it's tawah, which means an exemption from judgment, because you're going to have a certain amount of men and women that are going to be exempt from this destruction that's coming. And you can tell by the ones that are sighing and that are crying for all this wickedness that's going on. It says, unto the others, he said in mine hearing. So now the other ones that didn't receive this mark, he said in mine hearing. So he said, you have to do this, or what I'm about to send you to do to these others in mine hearing, because the Lord wants to hear when these jakes are here crying and screaming and wailing and gnashing, weeping and gnashing of teeth. It says, go ye after him through the city and smite, meaning kill. Let not your eye spare, neither have ye pity. So the Most High told the angel, don't spare, don't have pity. When you go during the time when King David numbered Israel, what happened? The Lord let the angel loose, and he was slaughtering Israel back then. So much that the Most High had to grab the angels and stop him. Whoa, whoa. Because that angel was going through Jake like hot butter, a hot knife through butter, or like water just gushing out. So that angel wasn't going to stop until he accomplished the Lord's mission. And the Lord was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Just let you know, man, that one angel could do much damage. So he said, let not your eyes spare, neither have ye pity. Why? Because you're going to have old people, you're going to have young people, you're going to have children, babies that are going to be slaughtered in this time. And back like it was back then, it is now. He says, slay utterly old and young, both maids, which are what? Virgins, and little children and women. So the Lord said, no, you don't spare anybody. All these people that don't have the mark, put them to death. And that's what's going to happen here in America. That the people that are not covered by the blood of Yahawashi, by this word, by this truth, by words of Yahawah, bahasham Yahawashi, by the blood of Yahawashi, are going to be utterly slaughtered in this society. And it's going to come in different waves, different forms, and the ultimate death is going to be those thermonuclear destruction. So those that get past all of the stuff that's happening, whether they get past Jacob's trouble and they get past, the hunger and whatever, the ultimate, if they're not a part of the elect, are going to be heading for the final destruction, which is the missiles and the lasers from the chariots. It says, but come not near any man upon whom is the mark. See, so they were commanded not to go near the ones that had the mark, or that thawah, or that exemption from judgment, and begin at my sanctuary. Then they began at the ancient men which were before the house, which when you go back to Ezekiel, the 8th chapter, it explains to you about these different men that were flying, that were committing all type of abominations. Hey, Salaki, brother, I know you brothers been putting a lot of good scriptures. I'm gonna just read a couple. Jeremiah 6 and 7. Neither shall men tear themselves for them in mourning to comfort them for the dead. Neither shall men give them the cup of consolation to drink for their father or for their mother. Yeah, because there's not going to be any pity in that day. Because the Lord says, seek ye the Lord while he may be found. Because the Lord is gracious. He is of tender mercies. But once he shuts up his bowels of compassion, that's it, man. It's straight up, fierce. Exodus 12 23, for the Lord will pass through to smite the Egyptians, and when he seeth the blood upon the lintel and on the two side posts, the Lord will pass over the door and will not suffer the destroyer to come in unto your houses to smite you. And back then it was literal. Today it's spiritual. It's talking about the spiritual mark of the Lord. You have a physical mark, which is Esau's mark, because Esau's carnal. Then you have Yahawah, the Most High's mark, which is spiritual mark, which is an exemption from judgment upon the elect of the nation of Israel. You know, let's see, 1 Corinthians 12:7. If the wife doesn't believe, does that mean she's exempt from the laws, such as not eating pig and not wearing clothes that pertain to men? No, if they don't believe, I mean, they're not exempt. The Lord could bring judgment on them. But if the man of the Lord is pleased to dwell with her, we'll get that real quick, then the Lord could save her for his sake. You know, and this is, you know, another thing that goes on in the churches in One West. That was going on there back then too, and some of these other Israelite schools that look, so you got a man that's a Muslim, then I'll deal with you. You don't have to deal with him because he's a non-believer, so I'm gonna deal. No, that's wickedness, man. Let me see. Let's go to 1 Corinthians 7:12. But to the rest speak I, not the Lord. If any brother hath a wife that believeth not, and she be pleased to dwell with him, let him not put her away. You know, don't put her away. Why? Because through your belief, she can be saved. It says, and the woman which hath an husband that believeth not, and he be pleased to dwell with her, let her not leave him. Because you're going to have non-believers that will be delivered, but there'll be something that the Lord's going to do to flip that around somehow, some way. But if that person has the thawah in them, the exemption from judgment, they will be saved. They will be delivered. It says, for the unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. So it depends on you, what you're doing, you know, and if the Most High will deliver that woman for your sakes. Likewise, a woman that believes in the truth and has a husband that is not a believer, if she really loves that man and pleased to be pleased to dwell with him, and he be pleased to dwell with her, although he's not a believer, she can deliver him through her belief. Vice versa with the man. This is what the scriptures say. For the unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. Else were your children unclean, but now are they holy, because the Most High joined that man and that woman together. Such as the mother of Timothy, you know, her and Timothy's father. Timothy's father was an Israelite that was into the Greeks, you know. And since he was into the Greek philosophy, he didn't want nothing to do with Israel. He didn't want to call himself an Israelite. He just he was comfortable dealing with that. But she was pleased to dwell with him. He was pleased to dwell with her. So she was with him. And she, being a believer, you know, could sanctify him. You see? And not he won't necessarily come into this thing, but there are situations like in the book of 1 Peter, the 3rd chapter on down, where a woman, by the conversation that she says and the things that she does and the way that she conducts herself, can cause her man that's a non-believer to be like, man, my woman is changing. You know, she's really looking, you know, really pious and, you know, holy, you know. And that might, and then he'll listen to her speech and the way that she speaks that is totally different. And then that might intrigue him to inquire about what she's into and to inquire about, you know, the truth, and he can be converted that way. It happens, you know. So we don't know how the Lord is going to do this thing, you know. This is his program. We're just giving out what the Lord said. He's in charge of making sure that everything goes the way it's supposed to go, and that's why we do what we have to do in the hopes that the Lord will save us, our families, so on and so forth, you know, because the Lord could do that, you know. It says, but if the unbelieving depart, let them depart. So if the man and the woman can't see eye to eye, or whatever, or they don't want to be together anymore, and they just part ways. It says, a brother or sister not under bondage in such cases, but the Most High hath called us to peace. For what knowest thou, O wife, whether thou shalt save thy husband? Or how knowest thou, O man, whether thou shalt save thy wife? Because you don't know. You know, remember there was a situation like in the instance of Cornelius. It says him and his whole household would be saved. But then there's some situation where just a man or just a woman or just a child will be delivered. It all depends on who has the mark and who doesn't, who has the thawar and who doesn't. And it's just that simple, man, you know? Hey, Barakatah, how about Shem Yahawashi? I'm glad you were edified, brother. This is what we do, you know? So that pretty much is it, you know. We pretty much hit the majority of these scriptures dealing with that situation. You know, I wanted to go into some more in Ecclesiasticus, but you know, I think this is a good time to end the lesson. You know, I hope you brothers have been edified. You know, keep on striving, keep on fighting. You know, and we're almost out of here. Yep, yeah. Lot's wife was put to death. That's right. All right, brothers. So you know, with that, you know, signing off for now. Lord's will come back at you with another lesson soon. Shalom.